The way the exhibition came about was through a gift that Bill Cogg, who was a collector and a gallerist in New York. He had a gallery in Harlem for the longest time, retired, but he still had all this artwork that he had acquired over the many years he had lived in Africa, and decided that he wanted to gift it to OLCDC. And so upon receiving the gift, we started having this conversation about what can this collection do, and what would be the best way to present the collection to people in the community. And so I think this was the genesis of the project, and what you see is the culmination of the project. And what is on view is really just a section of the collection, because I think what I tried to do was to really focus primarily on two areas, which is the Shona sculptures from Zimbabwe and the Makondes from Tanzania. And there I wanted to sort of highlight not only the skill, but the sort of the complexity of the conversation that these two different types of sculptural traditions really bring to the fore, in terms of thinking about tradition, but also in terms of thinking how that is translated within the contemporary and the function of these objects. And then what I also wanted to do was to expand it, or to suggest the expansion of this conversation by bringing in just a few more voices. This is Watara Watts, who is a very famous and well-known painter from Cote d'Ivoire, as well as Malangatane, who is also very, he's known as the father of modern African art. Just in terms of, pointing to the ideas of how some of these ideas in which these artists work with, go back to the past, how they draw from their past history, but also relate their contemporary times, And so the conversation amongst all these different works is about, looking back and thinking about the present, and working towards a language that is sometimes accessible in the sense that we can identify and see what is happening, but sometimes not, because there's a lot of relationship between the material and the concept. So when you look at some of the Zimbabwean sculptures, you're not quite sure if you're seeing a figure or you're seeing an animal. Is this something that plays into their sort of philosophy about how nature and humanity operate, or is this the reaction between what the energy of the stone sort of directs the carver to do? So there's that ambiguity about what it wants to be and what it is, and when you look at Malangatane's prints, there's so many figures that are sort of contorted and so clustered in the foreground, that we have no sense of what the depth is, but we have a sense of there's a lot of activity happening in the foreground that is not one thing, but many things between parts of the body and animals coming into the body, that again, there's this ambiguity about the human figure and the relationship to nature. So it's a really sort of interesting thread I've tried to sort of carve in terms of how we can think between the present and beyond in all these works.